Hello, welcome to Dr. Harry's Healthy Corner. This is a place where we discuss how to create a good lifestyle foundation for ourselves so that we can be as healthy as we can possibly be. Today, a little birdie told me that Friday was National Unplug Day. Now, after hearing this, I thought, well, after looking around and seeing how many people literally looking down at their electronic devices as I look around, I thought this might be something that we can talk about today. National Unplug Day and why it is important to unplug occasionally and so we can recharge. So I like to call this episode Unplug so you can recharge. Now, as we know, there is no scarcity of studies and research and information that tells us that adolescents and young adults are simply obsessed and addicted to their phones. But I asked the question, what about us older adults? Are we also guilty of a similar thing? I can say that just by observation, we might also be guilty of that. If I'm out at a restaurant and I'm looking around, I can guarantee you there are at least two or three tables that someone is there looking at the phone, whether they're updating on news or they're reading the latest sports score. So this is something that has really gotten a lot of our attention. So I know that many of us feel that if we miss something, the world might end. But that may not be the case. So on Friday, National Unplug Day, these are some tips that can help you to unplug. So let's start with, what are the risks besides the obvious concern about missing what's going on in front of you in that moment? Are we so busy looking at our screens that we're really missing out on our lives? So besides from that, what are some of the risks that can be associated with being continually plugged into our electronic devices? Well, first of all, one of it would be depression. There's some research study that suggests that overuse of electronic device can lead to depression. There might be several reasons for this, right? We may be reading news that might be distressing us. We might be continually exposing ourselves to information that causes our stress response to be activated all the time, constantly. And we know when that happens, we're more prone to depression. We also might see things on our social media feed or perhaps the news, and we might believe that this is the way we ought to live our lives, this is the way we ought to be, this is the way we ought to look. And since this is present with us 24/7, and we feel that we don't have or we're not these things, and this can also perhaps contribute to some depression. Eye strain, definitely staring at your electronic device and having that blue light continually being um, emitted to your eyes can certainly lead to some eye strain, and many studies do concur with that. The other thing is that it can put us in dangerous situations, right? So have you ever been walking down the street where you've noticed some people and they're walking and they're literally just looking down at their phone or tablet, and you don't really know, and you kind of have to skirt around to avoid them, and you're thinking, oh boy, I hope they don't step into that deep hole or that crack. And I'm sure you've also heard on the news about those individuals who have placed themselves in significant danger while taking a selfie to perhaps post to Instagram stories or Facebook stories, etc. So it can put us in danger. It can also lower our self-esteem. Again, if we think we are not that particular thing that's being portrayed to us, and then we might feel that we are less than, and we're continually exposed to that. So that might leave us with that. And then, of course, the final concern is addiction. Can we become addicted to these devices where we're just really incapable of doing without them? And if for any reason they're out of our sights for more than 5 minutes, then we become really distressed about that. So those are some of the concerns about being continually plugged in. to your phones, your tablets, the television. That's also an electronic device as well. So if electronic devices, if they're so bad for you, then why don't we just put them all away? Well, clearly nothing is all bad. And so, of course, it's great. We have great information at our fingertips when we need it. If we're working on a project and we need to look something up, it's right there for us. If we need directions to the coffee shop, again, it's there. So for those of us with no sense of direction, this is great. This has become a really handy tool for us. It does save it can save lives. I mean, we can look things up in an emergency situation. Also, many times we were able to several stories about locating somebody who again has their cell phones on them. So if you're in an emergency situation, you can be able to call 911 immediately. So it does give you easy access to that. And for me, it's really become sort of a virtual assistant. And so you are able to put everything in your calendar. Hi, Tamara. And so you're able to put everything in your calendar. You'll be able to coordinate everything. And for those of us with crazy busy schedule, this is so important. You're able to ask Google or whatever the Apple one is called to remind you, or Siri to remind you of something, to remind you when you have an appointment. And that's all very important. So we see it does have its benefits. But constantly plugging into our devices without giving us a chance to unplug and recharge, because we do not recharge when we are plugged in. So that is interesting, right? Your device is getting recharged if it's plugged in, but we are not. So constant plugging in can drain our energy. And these are some of the things that can happen. It can increase our stress levels, which increases our cortisol, right? That cortisol is that stress hormone that we do need. And if we don't have enough of it, we can certainly run into a lot of issues. But in excess and chronic exposure to it, it can contribute to things such as memory issues. And it can contribute to things such as interfering with thyroid function, interfering with proper metabolization of blood sugar or glucose, and can predispose us to weight gain in the wrong areas. And so it can cause our skin to become just more thin and papery. So we can see that chronic exposure to stress is an issue. But the interesting thing is that our devices can also, when we're checked in, can increase our dopamine levels, and that's our pleasure center, right? So it increases that dopamine level. And so we can really become just enthralled with it. And we can really want more and more and more. So here's the double-edged sword of technology, the pleasure and the pain of technology. And our goal is to be able to balance that so it benefits us without harming us. So having said that, what are some of the things that we can do to unplug on National Unplug Day, which is Friday? A little birdie told me it's on Friday. So what are some of the things that we can do? Well, the first thing, because I'm really crazy about sleeping, I think sleeping is so important. I think we need, without sleep, we don't function, we become frazzled and forgetful, and we don't think clearly. So sleeping is important. Many of us have the habit of plugging our phones in right next to our bedside. And so that creates the temptation to check on the latest updates, right? And basically check the latest news feeds, and to make sure you didn't miss any emails, or make sure that you didn't miss any text. And this is not the time to do that. Not only are you stimulating your brain when you're doing that, because there's a light being emitted from the phone, regardless of how low that light is. What you're doing is that you're encouraging the brain to start producing cortisol levels to wake you up instead of melatonin levels to put you to sleep. And another issue might be if you read something distressing on a news feed, you're probably not going to be able to sleep well that night. It's going to interfere with your ability to get restorative sleep. And quite frankly, unless you're a neurosurgeon, there are very few things that need to be taken care of at that time. So the thing here will be to recharge your phone someplace where it's not easily accessible to you. And of course, there's some concern about some radiation from the phone when you're sleeping with it, but this is the practical thing, the things that we mentioned before. So recharge it somewhere where it's inaccessible to you. That might be the next room, that might be across the bedroom, and you don't want that light emitting from the phone. That's number one. Number two, studies are telling us that if we're concentrating on a task, whether we're studying for a test, whether we're preparing for a presentation or preparing for the next day, if we are doing a project and our phone is next to us, even though you might have it on silent, we're still distracted. We're still not able to focus on that task. So ultimately, if there's something that's really important that you need to get done and you need to focus on, I would encourage you not to leave the phone in a place where it's in your line of vision. Because once you know it's there, you're always going to be thinking about it. You're always going to be thinking, I need to do this, and you become very distracted and not being able to focus. So in order to counteract that, you might want to just assign yourself a time where you check your email or your text or your social media, and that could be, you can say, listen, at time A and time B, at 8 a.m. in the morning and at 2 p.m. I'm going to check and respond, or put off until tomorrow category, and those are the only times that I'm going to check my email. So and other times it's not available to you, you're not distracted, and you're able to focus on what it is that you're doing. The other thing is turn off all notifications. So on National Unplug Day, turn off all notifications. Now, I could be drastic and say remove all your social media apps from your phone, but most of us are not going to do that. But if you turn off the notifications so that there's not a constant, whether it's a buzzing or a dinging or a ringing or whatever your notification is, you'll be distracted all the time and you will be tempted. It's like having food in the house that doesn't make you feel well, and you're on a good eating program and you've got it in the house. You're not depending on your willpower here. So you'll turn off all your notifications. So if a text comes in, you really won't be able to hear that notification and be tempted to check the phone. And you can check it again at 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. or whatever times you've decided to check it. Hi, David. And the other thing that we want to talk about is when you get home, instead of turning on the television or picking up your phone or picking up that tablet, that book you've always been putting off? Start reading that. That article you saved for later and you dog-eared it and you're like, I'm going to read this at some point. Start reading that. So instead of plugging into an electronic device, get back to basics, get your brain to work in a slightly different way. Why not read and create your own vision? So you'll be working on your vision, and the words on the page, you'll be using your imagination to create that visual instead of always having it reinforced and thrown at you constantly all the time. You're constantly being bombarded with someone else's vision. And so ultimately, take this time to create your own vision. Another thing, better yet, sit down and have a conversation with your spouse, with your children, with your mom. Have that conversation. That could be around the dinner table. Put the electronic devices away and look that person straight in the eye when you're talking to them. Look at them directly so that they know that you see them. You want to say, I see you, I hear you, I appreciate you. Everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be appreciated. So take that day to be that for someone and have them be that for you. Sometimes I feel that the art of conversation might be a little challenged today. So this might be National Unplug Day, might be a time to rejuvenate that and to communicate. How was your day? What challenges did you have? And truly listen and tune in, because people know the difference when you're listening. For example, you're like they know you're really not listening to them. So okay, this is a time to tune in. Now, the next is we live in Florida currently, and for those of you who do not, I apologize for that. But we can go out and take a walk in nature. We can really just go out and appreciate what's going on around us. Kind of see especially at this time in Florida. It's probably the only time we get breeze. So go out and look at the leaves as they kind of rustle in the wind, and just note the colors. People say we don't have different colors in this state, but we do. So there are different colors wherever you are. Just pay attention to that. Tune in. If you're close to the water, just listen to the waves. Even going outside in a park, if there's a fountain, listen to that. Just note and be involved. Nature has been shown to reduce our stress levels and improve our moods. And there's several studies that are saying that over and over again. So this might be an opportunity to simply unplug and start recharging. Just think about it. If we allow ourselves 1 to 2 days a month, it doesn't have to be a lot. I don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed about the thought of having to put their devices away for a long period of time. But if we allow ourselves to recharge 1 to 2 days a week, 2 days a month, oh, a week sounded pretty scary. Sorry about that. 1 to 2 days a month to unplug from feeling that constant overload and that overwhelm for all that information coming at us all the time, we just might able to find that point when we can exhale, recharge, and rejuvenate. So on that note, I didn't really want to make today's episode or talk just too lengthy. Just wanted to give you some tips. I just wanted to get you thinking about how you can unplug and recharge, and maybe, discuss with me some of the things that you were a challenge with. Some of the things perhaps that you might have questions about, like how do I do this and how do I do that. But if you feel that you're ready for National Unplug Day on Friday, then we'll all can do this together. Together we can take one day and recharge ourselves and put our phones somewhere else so they too can be recharged. So unless you have any questions, this is really a relatively short in the spirit of National Unplug Day. I won't be doing this next week as I have a previous obligation, but I will join you again the week after. And if for some reason the schedule clears up and I'm able to do it, then of course you will see the schedule on Facebook. Again, remember to please shoot me anything you might be interested in. Check out my continue to tune in to facebook.com/Dr. Harry MD. You can check out my Pinterest and my Instagram as well. And shoot me any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So until next time, have yourself a good one and a good night's sleep tonight. Remember, phones not at the bedside. Bye-bye now. Oh, there is a question. So let's see what this question says. Are there ways that we can use social media to reinforce the positive as opposed to introduce us to the negative? Oh, absolutely. That's why social media, we talked about some of the benefits of social media earlier on, and some of the things that it can do for us. So absolutely, we can use social media to perhaps create a group, a support that we can check into when we're not able to be with them. That will be one way that we can do that. There are also many apps now that help us to learn to meditate and help us to learn to relax and just help us to remember how to breathe. There's some apps like Wobot that I mentioned before that was created, I think, by someone at Stanford University that really can engage you. So to help you to manage your anxiety symptoms that you might having, maybe help you to manage some feelings of sadness that you might be having. Again, it's not meant to replace a therapist, but it's an interim, and many people do find that helpful. So there are definitely many things that being plugged into your devices can accomplish, but it's just every once in a while, like everything else, we all need to unplug, because along with that comes a lot of information that can also overwhelm us. And so we might want to know how to, I think recharging ourselves allow us to better filter out information and kind of take in the what's good and kind of leave out the thing that really can cause us to compromise our health and everything else? That's a very good question. Thank you for that question. And let's see. Don't have any more questions right now. So again, we will see you in 2 weeks, I believe. Until then, bye-bye.